Alright, hi everybody, welcome once again to Omens. I'm your host Ryan, he, him, his pronouns, and today we are delving into, the Three of Wands. It's October 11th, or it will be tomorrow for me, and it's lovely Libra season, my favorite season. It's starting to chill up a little bit down here. Yeah. Okay. So, today we're exploring the Three of Wands. We'll get into this card a little bit later. Dun, 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 dun. Alright, so... Totally have adjusted my camera already. Well, let's dive into it. So, first off... I don't even know if I really want to dive into it quite yet. Got the birds. We got extra birds because I found that the best light for my camera is if I leave the door open, so there might be more sound than we're all used to. Oh, also the Joker look was not on purpose. I found green hair dye at Target, and I was like, ooh, cool, green. And then I was doing my makeup, and I didn't realize until after I'd done my makeup, like about 20 minutes after that, oh crap, I kind of did a Joker look. It wasn't on purpose, I swear. I just found green hair dye, and it was awesome. Anyway. Yeah, guess that's it. So, okay, let's get into the 301s now that I've kind of done a bit of an introductory time. And I actually have my notes in order this time, so I'm not going to be sitting here going, which one am I up next? So, first off, we have the number 3, and I'm going to be using my Archeon Tarot 3 of Wands, which, interesting enough, because we kind of have the 3 Wands back here. For the most part, the entirety of this scene is taken up by the Pegasus, and the moon behind it. Behind her. So the number 3 in numerology is our first mind or thinking number. It's our first mental number. So it follows the primary verbal 1 and the intuitive 2 expressions. So we start out with verbal, the verbal 1, our first expressions when we're little tiny babies. Our first expression of life is a scream. I mean, even when, when baby's being birthed, the way we know a baby's okay is when they first take that first gulp of air, go, oh my gosh, that hurts, and they start screaming. So that's number 1. And then intuitive 2, because babies don't exactly, they're not mentally processing quite yet. They're just like, something's wrong, I'm gonna scream. They know something's wrong, they know they're hungry, they know they're tired, they know they're messy, whatever. So then they express. So then later on, that's followed by the 3, which is when we first get to the mental processing. It's when our baby's actually grown up a little bit along toddler, so they actually kind of have a mental process that's going on. So the 3 is our first mental number. It is the gateway to the conscious mind and rational understanding. Its focus is on the left-hand side of the brain. If I recall correctly, left-hand, right-hand sides of brains aren't an actual thing, but I can't remember where I read that, so I'm just going to stick with... But most of us know left brain, right brain stuff, so at least it's something we understand. 3 is also key to memory. Connection... So, we're gonna use this card because I want to integrate the card. everything about it, 3 of Wands is fire, correct? Wands equals fire. But if 3 is our first mental thinking number, that kind of explains as to why we have a Pegasus on this card, because a Pegasus is a creature of air, of the mind, which air is the element of the mind. So the Pegasus is, if we remember the story of the Pegasi, or the Pegasus, it was after Perseus chopped the Gorgon Medusa's head off, her child by Poseidon, who she hadn't been able to birth. There's a long story behind that. We'll actually get into it later, since it's kind of coming up. You know, we might as well get into it now. So basically, our story is, Medusa was a priestess of Athena, I believe. And there's a few different versions of the story, depending on which author you go off of, whether it be a Greek or a Roman author. And we mostly know the story from the Roman author. I don't remember who it was, but it was a dude who, he wasn't too fond of the Greeks. He believed the Romans were superior in every way, so he translated Greek myths into Latin, but he kind of tended to give them his own swing, in which they were kind of seen as not so great. Like, so in his version of Medusa's story, she deliberately got it on with Poseidon in Athena's temple because she was a bit of an asshole, or... Well, actually, I don't remember whether he said she purposely got it on, but we do know that his reasoning for Athena's judgment of her was because Athena was an asshole, because she was a Greek woman, and she was one of the Greeks' favorite goddesses. Now I'm jumping out of order. So, but anyway, there's a few different versions. The ones that tend to run a theme that I kind of like are basically Medusa. She was a priestess of Athena. Poseidon was like, oh hey, she's hot, and raped her in Athena's temple. And now, of course, we have, back in those days, a lot of victim blaming, because, of course, the Greeks were an extremely patriarchal and misogynistic society. So, obviously, the woman had to be punished for daring to have sex in a deity's temple, even though she was raped. So the concept was Athena punished her, but given the way that she punished her, there's a lot of actual theory nowadays, especially, that even though it was expected of her to punish her, she didn't quite agree with that, because Medusa was raped. Like, seriously. I mean, there's a few versions of the story where she was willing, and she actually... what was it? It was kind of deliberate. Oh, hey, you're hot. Let's fuck type deal. But she happened to do it in her goddess's temple. In which case, yes, it would be seen as a punishment. So it depends on which take you're going to go with. Whether the majority of stories have it as she was raped. There's only a couple that say it was consensual. So for the most part, most of us agree. The majority of people agree it was probably rape. So her punishment, which a lot of people, and even I see more as Athena's giving her the power to not be raped ever again, was to make her hideous, is what most people, is what it was assumed is. Actually, I don't know if anybody ever describes her as hideous, per se, but she ends up with snakes for hair, and the ability to turn anyone to stone who looks at her face. So, I mean, most of us are going to assume, oh, she must be so ugly that people are turned into stone, or is it that she just... There's a lot of, in her story, that they tend to say she was extremely devoted to Athena, so even though she was absolutely gorgeous, she didn't want to... She was pretty much celibate. So, being raped, it's like... all her power taken away from her, so Athena gets her the ability to take all that power back by making sure no one can ever touch her again. So there's that. On top of that, however, she ends up pregnant by Poseidon, but she never actually gives birth to the baby. So when Perseus comes along and chops off her head, which this is where it gets a little convoluted because Athena basically helps him chop off her head, so maybe it was a punishment. In that case, you could make an argument for it being more of a punishment and Medusa was actually willing. Just the way Perseus's story comes along after that. I mean, if we take Medusa's story as a singular, then it makes more sense that it was probably rape and she wasn't, and Athena was given her power. I think there was something else. Somebody else added onto it as to why she eventually ends up beheaded. Anyway, there's the AC. Anyway, now I'm running off on a track. But anyway, her baby is Pegasus. So when Perseus cuts off her head, Pegasus is released, which gives us... Sorry, Bobby just made a funky jump. So Pegasus is released. So if we take this... If we take the myth's symbology, which most myths are, they're not literal, then Medusa represents your intuitive primal instincts. And basically in her Gorgon form, she was what's the word I'm looking for? She's a bit more. She was hurt. She was volatile. She was constantly angry. She was stuck in that slightly. I don't want to say lower aspect because I don't like higher lower, but well. It is kind of a lower aspect of the shadow side of she was hurt and angry and frustrated and she wasn't growing from that. She was sitting there stewing in it. So when Perseus lopped off her head, he basically defeated the monster and released rational thought. So that's where Pegasus comes in. So that's where our 3 of the mind comes out, is that rational thought being released, and Pegasus was, I mean, I think it was Perseus who eventually tamed him. It might have been somebody else, but Pegasus was wild. He was not tame at all. Pegasus was he was a wild horse who could fly, and was, it did not act like a prey animal. Put it that way. Horses are prey animals, but Pegasus was not. So it's like that instinctual, creative mind, that first bit of mind, that first go-get and whatever, that's what Pegasus represents. That's what this 3 of Wands represents in our 3. So Pegasus is that mental mind, that first mind number, that first raw, immediate mental processes. Ugh, skip this a little bit. Now I get more. And maybe the computer will be a little more stable because my knees won't keep hitting the desk. So it's that primary mental processes. The other part of the 3 number, which is interesting, is 3 is kind of considered in a lot of ways the strongest number. So, excuse me, if you think of 3 as being, well, what's the first geometrical shape? You think of the 3-sided shape as the triangle. It is one of the most stable shapes in the geometric word. It's even more stable than a square. A triangle, a pyramid, even though a pyramid doesn't technically have 3 sides. That was interesting. Okay, apparently I can't do that. That's hilarious. Anyway, sorry, squirrel moment. So a triangle is known as the most stable shape because think about a square. Imagine there's a 4th line. It's given the ability to bend, whereas a triangle it's not going to collapse or fold in on itself. Even a short-sided triangle is still pretty damn stable. Not as stable as a right triangle, but that's why even in where is it? Yoga, Hindu meditations. It comes from Hindu. Your base is supposed to be a triangle. Or a reverse triangle. So basically, that's what lotus position is. Even half lotus and quarter lotus you're trying to make in meditation your base be a triangle. Basically, your butt is on your meditation cushion, so it's kind of lifting your hips above your knees because that's your best position is your hips above your knees, especially when you're sitting for very long periods of time. So that's one point of your triangle. That's the top point of your triangle. And then your bottom 2 points are your knees are supposed to be on the ground in lotus position. And that is the most stable meditation position. You can hold that for the longest time. I can do full lotus, but not for very long yet. I'm still most comfortable in half lotus. It's mostly my ankles that hurt, but I'm working my way up to it. But that is the most stable meditation position, and you can hold that for extremely long periods of time. So 3 is a triangle. 3 is creativity. Not necessarily stability in the way that the 4 is, because a square is... I mean, in a way, it's even more stable, especially if you think of, like, a cube. Even though, yes, it isn't actually four-sided. I know it's not four-sided. Everybody knows that even a pyramid isn't technically, or cone, isn't technically just three-sided. But it's that primary number associated with it is 3 points. Where's it going with that? The other thing 3 represents is that connection of mind, soul, and body. So we come again kind of to Pegasus, who is the mind and kind of that primal soul urge. Well, I'd say the way Pegasus came from Medusa's body, Medusa was kind of the body and a little bit of the soul. It's almost like the soul being released from the body was Pegasus, but also because the creature of air represents the mind, and he came out of Medusa's head. Again, that mind connection. So mind, body, soul connection all kind of wrapped up together in one. So 3 is the connection of mind, soul, and body. That first time all 3 of those come together, and well, that's the only 3 in that. 3 also represents creativity. That's kind of just a tag on to that, so it came out somewhere else, and I left it at the end of that, so yeah. Okay. So that's kind of our 3, and that was actually kind of fun. Alright, one sec, I throw it a little far. Okay, so the next part of this, we're going to get into the Kabbalistic angel, before we go into Kabbalah. So our Kabbalistic angel is Sitael, the god of hope. He's a seraphim, and I realized I haven't quite been explaining, I think, the hierarchies of the angels, especially after, I think I explained maybe the dominions once, I can't remember. So, I'm gonna really quick get into that, once I find my book. Oh, there it is. Okay, so, just a quick rundown, just so I have it in here. So the hierarchy of angels, oh hey, works with this. So Seraphim, which Sitael is, Sit-A-L, it's a capital A, I wonder if it's supposed to be Sit-A-L. Sit-A-L? That sounds slightly better. Sitael or Sit-A-L. Sit-A-L sounds slightly better. He really didn't do a good job dictionary explaining their pronunciations. Anyway, so Sitael is a seraphim, which is the highest rank of angels. The choir of seraphim are 6-winged beings that fly around the throne of God. So they're the highest rank of angels. So you can see all 6 wings, some covering his face and his feet. And that's how they're usually described, is 2 wings cover their head or their eyes or whatever, and 2 wings cover their feet. Okay, it's right here. Isaiah 6, 1 through 3. Chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain, 2. He covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. So, covering the face, covering the feet, fly. And one cried unto the other and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, the whole earth is full of his glory. So Seraphim's entire job is to worship God, the Christian God, Jehovah. Or, well, in this case, would it be Judaic? Oh, this isn't Isaiah, this is Judaic. Oops. I totally know my Bible. I only sort of know my Bible. I never read the whole thing through, even though I meant to. Okay, anyway. So, seraphim are the highest order of angels. Below them are the cherubim, which guard the Garden of Eden and escort the throne of God. Thrones are the great wheels covered in eyes that deliver divine justice and hold up God and remain forever in his presence. Then dominions appear as humans of perfect beauty with wings and are responsible for regulating the duties of the lower ranks of angels. Then come virtues. They're responsible for making miracles occur upon the earth. They possess an unshakable energy welling forth from their godlike abilities. Then the powers, which ensure the cosmos remain in order. They are the warrior angels prepared to destroy evil spirits or cast them down into prisons. Then the principalities, guide and protect nations, races, and institutions, educators and guardians of the realm of mortals. Then we have below that the archangels, chief leaders of the angels that appear among mortals. Their power is great and they serve God directly. So arch literally just means chief, so chief angel, archangel. Archangel means chief angel. And then below them, the lowest rank are angels, are the messengers of divine light who descend from the heavens to minister to mortals. They have diverse powers and roles, and some are given specific tasks. They are capable of performing great miracles and unleashing tremendous destruction. So angels are the lowest rank, and angel comes from the Greek word for messenger, so that's literally what it means, which is why, even though they're all angels, there's different orders of basically messengers, I guess you could say, and the lowest one are those who are just messengers. And also, I mean, they do other work too, but anyway, I figured I'd give that a quick going through again and try to remember to do that with these. So Setael, his name means the god of hope. So, and for those who do psalmic magic, his psalm is chapter 90, verse 2. So we can kind of see just from his name that he works with hope. That's kind of his power, probably. As he's a seraphim, that means he's kind of in charge, probably in charge of that whole, range of what all that encompasses, whether directing others to give hope, whether kind of working in the power, that idea of hope. Okay. So anyway, his I lost my train of thought. I hate it when I do that. Okay, so a person born under Setael's basically under his guardianship, under his times or whatever. The people born under him love truth, will keep their word, and oblige those in need of their services. Setael protects against adversities, weapons, and wild beasts. He helps with great works, protection from adversaries, and the meaning of this card when pulled is construction of the universe. So we can see from that he is kind of that first building. His realm is huge. He's a seraphim. He's at the very top order. He's basically kind of CEO of Hope, I guess, or maybe even above that, whatever's above the CEO. No, that sounds about right. He's probably the CEO. I don't know business hierarchies. Let me pull cleaner. So he's kind of the chief executive officer in charge of the entire realm of Hope type deal. So Hope is that. Hell with it. Where's my dictionary? Ooh, I can't pull up my dictionary. I got something else up on my phone. Okay. Anyway, we all know what Hope is. It's an idea. It's hope that my camera will actually work one of these days properly, or that, I'll get a new one. Hint, hint. Okay, no. I lost where I was going with this. I don't know where I'm going with this. Let's move on. So the people born under him he's basically the sole guardian of those born from 1240 to 1 a.m., 1240 a.m. to 1 a.m. The moral guardian of those born January 4th, March 22nd, June 2nd, August 13th, and October 24th, and the physical guardian of those born from March 30th to April 3rd. Okay, that's the basics out of the way. I don't know where to go with this dude. Construction of the universe and help with great works. And protection from adversaries. So I'd say if you do angelic work, and you're doing something 3 of 1-y where you've started something. What the hell even was that? And you're ready to move on to something bigger and greater type deal. When you've kind of set your base, what the hell? Bad camera. Okay, that was probably my bad. Sorry, just doing stuff randomly. If you're starting a big-ass project, he'd probably be someone to call on. Or if you just kind of need, like, a large protection area. So, against adversities, weapons, and wild beasts. So, probably someone to call on if you're fighting someone. This might be, Citadel might be a good one for soldiers to call on. From the sounds of it, probably a good one because the God of Hope, and then of course protection against adversaries, adversities, weapons. Probably someone a soldier would benefit from calling on. And then, hell, if you're going out camping somewhere really rural and you're by yourself, just be like, don't let me get eaten by wolves. Or whatever. Or a moose. Trampled by a moose. Yeah, I'm not too great with this one. That's all I got on that one. He's not really speaking very much to me. Okay, moving on. The Kabbalah of 3 of Wands. And for this one, I picked from my Mystical Cats, 3 of Fire. And it kind of spoke to me. So, you can see there's really not much in the way of... There's a little bit of fire. So, probably should have looked this up. There we go. Okay, so you see this wheel the cat's sitting on? The stone carving. So there are little ellipses of flames, or little drawings of flames in it, so it is supposed to be fiery, moving around in a wheel. There is something specific with this symbol. Let me look it up real fast. Okay. So I looked it up real fast. So the symbol this cat's sitting on is known as the World Triad symbol. It's the concept of threeness, treated as sacred since ancient times, seen as the unity of the body, the mind, and the spirit. So again, we have that three of mind, body, and soul, or mind, body, and spirit. In this case, they're kind of interchangeable. Its originally, the World Triad was an Oriental symbol, but the Western Gnostics adopted it as an emblem denoting the threefold nature of fate and reality. It represents cosmic creativity and stands for cycles of time that keep spiraling endlessly. Representative of continuing movement of the Earth, can even be understood as a reflection of the interdependence and interconnectedness of all existence. Meditation on the World Triad symbol is believed to promote harmony, creativity, and self-confidence. Yeah. So, kind of relevant to the Kabbalah meaning of this, even. Because for the Kabbalah, the Three of Wands, or the three cards, three minor arcana in general, are represented by the Sephiroth, Binah, which means understanding. The three is the completion of a suit. So, where this comes into is basically how I understood it. Is that one starts a suit, two is working in it, three is the completion of it. But that's only the first three. We still got like 7 more to go in a minor arcana suit. But a 3 is where we hit that first completion point. 3 is common-centered, prepared for what the world will bring, completely trustworthy, intuition. So Binah is the mother Sephiroth of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. It's a representation of the womb, and also, so where the Tree of Life works is you have Kether, Chakma, and Binah. And Chakma and Binah together complete the third eye at the center, where our chakra is, the third eye chakra is. So Binah is one half of the third eye. So if we remember from the Two of Wands, Chakma means wisdom, and so we have wisdom and understanding, and together they represent intuition and insight and seeing. Basically, like how a seer is a seer. It's with wisdom and understanding we can see clearly. So, and Binah is, so with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, those first 3 Sephiroth are in what is known as, is one of the worlds of the Tree of Life. There's multiple ones. And this first world is Atziluth. It is known as the fiery world of inspiration, so we have the crown, wisdom, and understanding are all part of the fire of inspiration. And Binah is specifically the Sephiroth of creation as well as understanding. So here in this one, we can kind of see this cat standing on a representation of the it's the World Triad, so it's a representation of all of existence, pretty much. And this one is, it's got little fire motifs, so that adds into a specificness of inspiration creation, because even though fire is one side destruction, on the other side it's also creation. Come on, man. If you think about it, for example, let's take forest fires. I'm sure we can all, our minds immediately turn right now to the fires all along the west coast of the U.S. My camera is so irritating. And what that is, that's an example of destruction. So forest fires are known to be extremely destructive. They cause loss of life, loss of homes, loss of forest, loss of habitats. But with that, they also cause creation, because the reason forest fires tend to come along is stuff has collected, debris, the trees have gotten too big, everything's just kind of piled up and covered, and it's like some stuff, the giant trees have kind of taken over, and no new stuff can grow. Everything's kind of hitting a stasis. So once stuff gets piled up enough, trees get big enough, that gives, and dry underbrush happens because the trees take a lot of water. They tend to be the ones that take it. So that leaves plenty of possibility for all that underbrush to dry out while the trees get all the water. So you have a lot of dry underbrush. So it's perfect conditions for fire. So fire starts, clears out all that underbrush, clears out a good chunk of those trees that have been taking over, and the ash and debris left over from fire, a lot of stuff burns, actually contains a ton of nutrients. And to top it all off, there are some seeds, some tree seeds, that actually cannot grow unless they have enough heat applied to them. So in this case, fire, like acorns are one example. Acorns can't split open very easily without either a lot of heat. So, and then there's a couple others that also do the same. So this is that understanding of the fire, of creation and destruction. This cat has seen both sides, seen all sides of the fire, and is able to create from that. Is able to understand. She is able to understand everything she's learned, and as you can see, she's looking up and looking forward, so into a light. So she has seen a light in all this darkness back here. She sees the light, she understands both the light and the dark, and she's completed that first stage of training and is ready to move forward, as you can see from her paw lifting up. She's ready to move forward into the next stage of understanding, into the next stage of knowledge, up, higher, further, faster. Those of you who didn't recognize that, that was farther up and farther in. That's what it was. Farther up and farther in. That's actually from the Chronicles of Narnia, The Last Battle book, near the end, where basically Narnia's, spoiler alert for those who haven't read The Last Battle, skip the next couple seconds if you're really worried about it. Basically, Narnia has been completely destroyed. It's kind of an apocalypse type deal. Narnia is completely destroyed, but from that destruction of the old Narnia, the shadow Narnia as they call it, from that destruction comes the new Narnia, which is kind of supposed to be a representation of heaven, where it is endless. You can constantly see more and more and more, and you're going, and they say like so basically the main characters kind of entered from the stable, and they're like, this is Narnia, there's everything all right here. Now, a little bit of take to this is they have a little bit of a scenery add to this, is there are a bunch of dwarves. So basically the story was there was a false Aslan, and to sacrifice to it they throw creatures into the stable, and the stable ended up kind of being the doorway to, after Aslan basically brought about the destruction, the stable was the doorway to the new Narnia. Actually, it was in the first place too. So basically, certain ones. So the Pevensies, was it Pevensies? Yeah, Pevensies. Basically, most of our protagonists were, once they went through the stable, they were like, "This isn't a stable. This is a whole world. There's a stable door, but there's no walls. This is not. This is like a field of grass and flowers and whatnot." But there were some dwarves who were sitting kind of all huddled in the corner, and they're all like, "What are you talking about?" They're huddled around a feast table, funnily enough. It's got all kinds of food, wine, delicacies, what have you. They think it's moldy hay, mushrooms, and stale, disgusting water type deal. And that's all they understand, all they see. They see that stable. They're captured in this, um, they're captured in this, they don't understand, basically. So if we take this to the Kabbalah of Binah is understanding, they don't understand, they don't have the wisdom, Chakma, so they're stuck in their little hole type deal. They're stuck there, whereas those who have the understanding, who, well, in the Chronicles of Narnia, it's the belief in Aslan, basically, his chosen type deal. Because they have that understanding, they can see beyond type deal. And then, of course, once all the apocalypse stuff goes on, they realize where they are is Narnia, but not what they had known as Narnia, that it was more, everything was more depth, more color, more everything, basically. The dwarves are still stuck there, I believe, even after everything, but the thing they get told as they go on is farther up and farther in. So basically, even though they first entered this this beginning point, damn, I'm not even halfway through, and it's already been 42 minutes. Sorry, scroll moment. Even though they have seen all this newness, there's still more to do, farther up and farther in. That's kind of what we're seeing here, is even with all this gained enlightenment and understanding, there's still more to be had, more to go, farther up and farther in. I think that's all I have on Kabbalah. Okay, so, alright, so moving on. Sorry if it's a little jumpy, I just went and adjusted my light. I think it's because the sun's slowly moving, so I added another light. Anyway, moving on. So, the astrology of the Three of Wands. So, I'm actually going to go ahead and use my Vice Versa Tarot for this. This is actually this side, and then this is that side, the back side type deal. Now that I realize that I had it upside down. So, the astrology of the Three of Wands is, okay, according to the Tarot and Astrology book I have, is the Sun in Aries. So, basically, each astrological sign is 30 degrees, right? It goes 0 to 29. So then you can split those into more degrees, and I think I explained this in the Two of Wands. You can split those into what are called deacons, or deacons. Yeah, okay, I did mention this in 2 once, now that I remember. Deacons of 0 to 9, 10 to 19, and 20 to 29. So each of those deacons has its own different astrological ruler. So in each of the fire signs, it's the 3 fire signs rule each different deacon. And then same with all the other elements. So in Aries, the first deacon, 0 to 9, is ruled by Aries, second is ruled by Leo, and the third is ruled by Sagittarius. That is the other fire sign. So, whereas the 2 of Wands would be Aries and Aries, so a double ruler of Aries. The 3 of Wands is the second deacon of Aries, so the Leo in Aries, or the Leo of Aries. So, even though this is ruled by Aries, it's also the sub-ruler of Leo, or more specifically, Tarot and Astrology. Book by Corinne Kenner says basically primary ruler is Aries, secondary ruler is the sun, the planet, as opposed to a sign. So this is Leo and Aries, the sun and Mars, basically. So if we want to take it that way, it's like the 2 signs and the 2 planets. It's Leo and Aries and the sun and Mars. Because Aries is ruled by Mars. Just FYI. So this is the middle deacon, which is also due to the aspects of each sign are whether they're cardinal, fixed, or mutable. So why is this one cardinal fire? It's told me cardinal fire. Probably should have looked that up. Because Aries is the cardinal sign, Leo is fixed, Sagittarius is mutable. So this should be fixed fire, not cardinal. Give me 1 sec. Okay, my bad. Okay, the cardinal fire part is the 2, 3, and 4 of Wands, not just the 3 of Wands. It's because Aries is the cardinal fire sign. So basically, this 3 of Wands is part of that cardinal fire, that beginning initiatory fire type deal. It's part of Aries. So the Golden Dawn gave the 3 of Wands the name of the Lord of Established Strength. So if we remember from the 2 of Wands, its name was the Lord of Dominion. So this is the Lord of Established Strength. So whereas in the 2 of Wands, it's like Lord of Dominion, it's this dude overlooking his entire domain type deal. This one is, let me see better on this side. He is well established. He's been there, done that. And he's strong and all that. He knows. He's been there, done that. He's well, strongly established. So the sun in this card represents our sun. The sun as a planet is a representation of our ego, our will, our self. It's why when people ask what's your sign, they're asking what's your sun sign, because that is the core of who you are. It's not all of who you are, but it's the core. Even though your rising sign is, your rising sign is kind of your mask of yourself. It's that first presentation you give to people. So when people first meet you, they might think, so for example with me, they might think, oh, is he a Sag? He's a Sagittarius, because my rising sign is Sagittarius. So my first impression tends to be pretty open and philosophical and kind of get there, go there. Once you get to know me, which doesn't take very long, because I actually embrace my sun sign as who I am very strongly. It kind of tends to override my rising sign. I'm a Libra, so they're going to get to know that really fast, but that Sagittarius part of me comes through very strongly still. So the sun is the core of who you are. your ego, and not your ego as an egotistical, overblown, whatever ego. It's like literally ego is identity type of deal, who you are, your core self. In Aries, of course, is the drive, the movement, the want to get going. Um, sorry, I was watching a bird in my rear view. He's getting the water. Aries is that first initial go for it. So the sun in Aries is actually, the sun is exalted in Aries. So what that means in astrology is, even though Aries isn't the sun sign, the sun's ruling sign is Leo. In Aries, the way she described it is, the sun is a visiting dignitary, an honored guest, a potent source of strength, wisdom, enlightenment. So where Aries signifies leadership and initiation, the sun adds in that extra power, that whereas Aries wants to, okay, I'm ready to go, the sun makes it so it's like, I'm ready to go, and I have that power, I have that strength, I am the Lord of established strength. I've done this, been there. I'm good. I'm ready to go, ready to move forward. And we can see in here, he is ready. He is, he's done this. He is established. These two, ones, you can actually see, they're rooted. He's grown these. They are well and truly, he doesn't need to hold on to them anymore. So like in the Two of Wands, it's like he's holding on to one and the other one's like bolted to the side of the castle wall. This one is, he's like, I don't need to do that. They have grown for me. I have already created these, and they are alive and well and functioning, and they don't need me to hold on to them or to give them strength. They already are. They are parts of me. And we even see this on that side of this is, you can see this is where he comes from. And this even adds more to that Lord of established strength. It's like, this is a giant old forest. This is well and truly established. These trees are, they are strong. There's that strength. They are huge and enduring and just long-lived. They've been there. And so he comes from that, and he is ready to move onto this barren desert plain and make it his, just as much as that forest is also his. And we can even see this in that power. He's in complete control of it in this wand here. This wand he's holding, he's got his glyphs and his signs. So that says that he is, again, Chakma, understanding that comes from, is half of, Chakma is wisdom. I was thinking wisdom. Bana is that understanding, but it's one half of that third eye. So this is all three of those, because he's got the wisdom here, he has the understanding, and because of that he has the power and perception. That creativity right here represented in this yin and yang of fire and water, which he is in complete control of. He's just like, I have this. I'm well and established, ready to move forward into that light of understanding even more. Again, with this moving forward into the light motif, he's ready to move forward. So again, with astrology, since I'm kind of wandering off from that, It's the sun in Aries, which almost you can also kind of see because Aries is ruled by Mars, whose main color is red. He's got a giant red cloak. He is Mars. He is that lord, that conqueror, that dominion. And there's his sun, where he's ready to go towards that sun in Aries, that sun in Mars, um, Leo and Aries. It's like he's the main dude, but he has that push, that oomph, that power from the sun. Aries and Mars is that main dude, but yeah, he's got that push from Sun and Leo. Because that's the other thing that adds on to this, because it's Leo. Leo is the king archetype. Almost kind of more the Emperor archetype. No, the Emperor is Aries. Leo is the king. He's ruled and established. I mean, we all know the stereotypes about Leo, which stereotypes are stereotypes because they're common. So if you think of all those keywords of Leo, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, that's what we are, but we're adding that with all the stereotypes of Aries. We're taking those two and we're putting them together pretty much in this card. It's like we're taking the king and the emperor. We're taking the lion and the ram. That's even more accurate. We're taking that lion and the ram and we're putting them together. That's what our Three of Wands is the lion and the ram together. He's ready to move forward, go forward, but he's ready to move forward and go forward, and he already is a king. He's a conqueror, pretty much. Alright. Damn, this is gonna be a long one. I blame the three. Moving on. So here we come again to, I told you Perseus was gonna come up again. So in the Celestial Tarot, the constellation is Perseus. The hero, one of the heroes who did a lot. He was the one-sandaled dude. He was, if I remember his story correctly, he was the son of a king who he'd managed to escape as a babe. I believe his mother probably managed to get him safely away. He was found by a couple of shepherds. Or maybe I'm thinking Oedipus. There's a lot of Greek myths that have a similar theme of basically the... Oh, no, I'm not. Okay. Yeah, I am thinking Perseus. Okay. So basically, he was... his mother managed to get him safely away. He was raised by shepherds because his father, the king, was overthrown by a tyrant or whatever. And then this tyrant, the new king, was told that he would eventually be defeated by a one-sandaled man. So what ended up happening with Perseus is he wanted to... he didn't quite know this all, but or maybe he did, I can't remember now. But he was basically making his way to the kingdom from his way, and came to a great river, and this little old lady asked, and we all know, if you know fairy tales, you know where this is going. Little old lady asked him to carry her across the river because she couldn't get across on her own. So he did, but in doing so, he lost one of his sandals. Makes sense. Fairy tales again. So he was kind of forced to walk into town wearing just one sandal, and well, everybody in the city or town or whatever knew the story, knew the prophecy that the king would be overthrown by a one-sandaled man. So you can imagine stuff got up. So the king was like, okay, I'm gonna send you on a bunch of quests, try to kill, like, impossible quests, try to kill you. And his mother, I believe, was still kind of alive. Yes, his mother was still alive, and she was kind of one of the king's concubines, ruling king's concubines. So he goes on a bunch of quests. One, which we've already explored, Jason, one please. The main one we've already explored is, his main one, which is the defeat of Medusa. So he basically gets a lot of help from Hermes and Athena through all his trials and tribulations, and his final one is to, well, not quite his final one, his final one is to get Medusa's head. So he gets her head, keeps it in a sack. On his way back, he happens to pass, we've already seen two characters in his story from this, the Ace of Wands and the Two of Wands, Cassiopeia and Andromeda. So he rescues her from the sea monster. He does a lot of rescuing people from Poseidon who had problems with Poseidon. Well, he doesn't quite rescue Medusa, he kills her, but anyway. It's a lot of this all in the wands. A lot of Greek myth similarities. Interesting how they come up. Rescues her, so we've already met those two. He gets back to the court of the king, and he basically tells his mother to cover her eyes, shows Medusa's head, everybody turns to stone, and then he gives Medusa, and then when he's the king and all that, he gives Medusa's head as an offering to Athena, who places it on her shield permanently. So yeah, which I believe was in fact the shield he uses, as you can see down here, which to defeat Medusa, because he uses it as a mirror. Does he use it as a mirror? Or does he have an actual mirror? I'm pretty sure he uses the shield as a mirror, and in doing so is able to defeat Medusa, because he's not looking at her directly, so he doesn't get turned to stone. But he turns everybody else to stone, so in here, this is all about his defeat, his greatest trial, basically, is to defeat the Gorgon Medusa, and he manages to do that. So he's already gone, and like I said, this is one of his final trials, so he's already gone and done a bunch of stuff, as we can see right here, represented by Two of Wands, which is a common motif, is two are always behind and one is ahead, because he's done that. He's Lord of Established Strength. He's done so much, and he's only got one final thing left to do, just to move ahead. In Perseus' case, it's just take back his kingdom, pretty much. And now here, the Celestial Tarot has, of course, like you've noticed before, the signs on here. So, kind of see it. Okay, so if you can kind of see it, we have the sign of Aries, because this is Wands, Aries, fire, so it's ruled by Aries. And then also we have here Jupiter. Oh, I forgot. Okay, so, real quick, running back to the Kabbalah, Binah is ruled by Saturn, the planet Saturn. That's another thing in the established ruling thing, established strength, Lord of Established Strength thing, is Saturn is the father, the, kind of the king. He's well established. Saturn was, also known as, no. Saturn was Jupiter's father. So, in Greek terms, that would be, who was it? Kronos? Was it Kronos? It was Kronos. Kronos and Zeus. So Saturn is also Kronos, the Lord of Time, authoritarian in his shadow side, all that. So I ran away, put that out of order. There was something on there. Oops. Sorry, going backwards. Nope, that's not it. Okay. So, Two of Wands. Okay, they have it mixed up, Two and Three of Wands in here. Permeates. No. Okay. Okay, alright, yeah, I'm just gonna read out of this real quick. In the third Sephirah, Binah, the supernal mother, we see the understanding of the eternal feminine, the trinity that brings opposites, time and eternity, perhaps, in the Three of Wands, into a newly created union. The three is always the fulfillment of the two. In Wands, it is the trust in our intuition, in our own life force, in our connectedness with God energy. Binah has brought forth the child of perfect faith who knows intuitively that we belong on this earth and are exactly where we are supposed to be. How many lives, how many lifetimes of Saturnian restriction and discipline are required to arrive at this place of peace? So basically, because Saturn is, no, we can't move forward, we need to establish, we need to get our ground, we need to build our structures. Because of that, because of going through all that, the Three of Wands is able to move forward, because I don't think it's the right one. Again, he has built this. I can't believe I forgot about Saturn. I can't believe I did that. But basically, that's another thing. This is the Saturn aspect. This back here is Saturn. This is where he comes from, is Saturn right here. Saturn is the builder, the structure maker, the dude with the clipboard, the CEO, the executive, the, okay, yeah, but have we got this, and this all done before we can do that? We need all of these taken care of first. That's the Saturn. And I can't believe I forgot that. But I only remembered it because for some damn reason this one has his Jupiter. Let's find out why. We already know the Celestial is slightly different than the traditional astrology of tarot. It's slightly different because we start with the ace as part of the first of Mars. That's why. Because basically what it has is because whereas in the traditional like Hermetic Golden Dawn, most understandings of astrology with tarot. So I already told you, mentioned that the Three of Wands is the second decan of Aries, correct? So, because it usually starts 2 and then goes 3, 4, so that's our Aries. However, in the Celestial Tarot, they start with the Ace as the first decan. So this would be the third decan of Aries, is what they're saying, which is ruled by Jupiter and Sagittarius. Totally different take on it. So, Perseus, I honestly don't quite see it. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this. Am I? The hero has accomplished his labor, surrounded by the god's gifts. Perseus feels satisfied and fulfilled. Having accomplished his initial intention, there is confidence and enthusiasm to pursue other adventures and opportunities. I suppose it's up to... I've already made quite the case for the sun being the sub-ruler, but here in this one we have Jupiter as the sub-ruler instead of the sun. Which you could make a kind of a case for either or. So Jupiter is the planet of expansion, wishes, fulfillment, luck, just the ability to go. Which, now that I'm actually talking on it, bringing the myth back onto it, damn, this is going to be a really long episode because we are nowhere near done. Sorry y'all who were hoping for slightly shorter. Okay, back to what I was thinking. Jupiter is the son of Saturn. So Saturn has created the structure. Saturn, let's bring this back. Saturn has created all the structure. Jupiter can move forward from it and to the sun. Ooh, I like that. I just came up with that. I love it. So tying these all together, you could probably put, you can put either Jupiter or this. I'd almost still kind of go for the Sun being the sub-ruler, than more so than Jupiter. There is actually a good argument for both. I would say, like, all three together, maybe. Because in the Three of Wands, this one, so most of the meanings of it are we're ready to move forward into the next place. We've already got our roots. But we are moving forward, which is expansion. Moving forward from what was. Saturn was what was, created the structure. Jupiter can move forward into something new, into more creation. So you can make an argument for either or even a bit of both. Now, granted, for most tarot, it's going, especially with throwing astrology in there, it's going to be the Sun is the ruler. It's the second decan of Aries, not the third. However, in this one, it is the third decan, which would be the 20 to 29 degrees. So the final decan, the mutable decan, again, that mutable aspect, Sagittarius, Jupiter, moving forward, changing. Changing is the end of one cycle, ready to begin the next. Not quite in that ready to begin the next. So again, argument for either or. A bit of both. I mean, it's tarot. You can throw in, it's tarot. Nothing's ever fixed, specifically. There's no one way must be this way. I mean, heck, even just with these two. It's two different ways of looking at it. But you can make an argument for both. They do have the same basic. It is Aries that they're in. It is in the sign of Aries that they're both in. It's just whether you want to say it's the fixed aspect of it or the mutable aspect of it is up to you, and probably where it comes in your reading, how it comes up in your reading, and even what your card looks like. Because, let's be honest, if I was going with, hell, any of these, let's just bring out these four. Okay, so four of the ones we've already looked at. I'd almost put this more as the third decan, as a Jupiter of we're coming from somewhere established, coming from Medusa, coming from the Gorgon, and we're exploding forth into all kinds of new things. This definitely speaks more of a Jupiter, third decan, Sagittarius. Sagittarius and Aries, Jupiter and Mars. Same with this one, Jupiter and Mars, Sagittarius and Aries, or Jupiter and Aries in the science case. Whereas these ones would definitely, I would read them more as the Sun in Aries, as it being Saturn, not the Sun, Leo in Aries. It's fixed, it's established, we're ready to slowly move forward. We've got our ground, we're ready to slowly move forward. These ones have their ground. Pegasus, like, literally flew out of Medusa's body, like, just off. So this is where it comes into Jupiter's. This is where it comes into knowing your deck. And that's also kind of why I love reading multiple decks, and why I'm always like, I always ask the querent to pick their deck, pick which deck. I don't let them see which decks they are. They're all up in their bags and whatever. I even, with my two that are still in boxes, one of them I take it out of the box completely because it's just a flip top box and I really need to make a bag for it. The other one is in a solid two-part box. I take the lid off of it because the bottom of it, and I just have it sitting down, so they can't see at all what these decks are. Even my Angel Tarot / Oracle, even though the bags and one of my Mermaid Tarot, the bags are kind of opaque, or not opaque, see-through mesh, basically. But I have them set so they can just see the backs, kind of just barely. So they don't know what deck they're getting, because what they need, I think it's just better to not be able to see it. I think they need to be able to pick based on intuition, based on what they really actually need. Because, like, say, one I had recently, dude came in, he'd already been making a career decision. He'd already pretty much made it, but then something had come up, so it was giving him another option, and he was really liking that option. It would have basically, instead of being able to quit his job completely and go to what he wanted to do, he would have had the option to do part-time in his job, and that would have been slightly bit more of a safety net type deal. So it sounded really good. He was so excited about it, ready to go. He just wanted kind of like confirmation, see what it would look like type deal. Well, interesting enough, I mean, it was all exciting, all kind of happy. You'd expect some kind of, I don't know, a really happy-looking deck, I guess. He actually picked out the Archeon deck, so I'm like, because, I mean, Archeon, I mean, you can't really tell from this card, but you've seen some of the others. It's dark. It tends to be my more shadowy deck. It's like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. What are we actually looking at? Turns out, in the course of the reading, as I'm sitting there, I'm just reading the energy of what it, I just pulled 2 cards for like 3 different aspects of what is this energy gonna kind of look like if you go into these things, and it did not look good at all. It was like, he's like, ooh, okay, so what if I go back to my original plan of just straight up quitting my job, no safety net? Came up great. So he, as far as I know, he ended up going with that, but it was like, that's kind of what I'm talking about. He was all excited. It was like, this sounds great. It sounds awesome. That's why I read with so many different decks, because sometimes you need to know, sometimes it's going to be Jupiter in Aries, and sometimes it's going to be the Sun in Aries. All depends on what you need, what your deck, what your querent needs, what you need, what your deck's saying. That's why there's always the little different nuances. Okay. Moving on, because I'm just gonna say now, I'm expecting this to be like a 2-hour one. Sorry, this is kind of probably be my longest one, which is kind of funny, but at the same time, I'm also getting better at this, so I expect they're going to get longer because I'm finding more details. But we're down to the last 2. Although I do have an extra thing I threw on this because it was interesting, but I don't know if we'll get to it. So our Spirit of Halloween deck, I decided not to go with monster. I'm actually going to start calling them beings, because not all of them are monsters. Especially not this one. So the being for the 3 of Wands is a brownie. So brownies are household spirits. I remember reading stories about them as a kid, and they sounded awesome. They're household spirits that come out at night when everybody's asleep, and they do chores, they clean house, do farming tasks. They most tend to come, most stories I've ever read with them have them in farms. So they do farming tasks, they get the horses fed, all the hay turned out and cleaned, clean up little stuff in that, clean up chores in the house, make it all nice and pretty, like they really clean. So they do that, and then they kind of just disappear, and they do not like to be seen or noticed. Like, it's insulting to see for a brownie to be seen. It's like they feel, if you get up in the middle of the night and you happen to catch one in the middle of stuff, expect it to be gone forever, because they're, I don't know whether it's shyness or, if I remember correctly, they consider it an insult to be seen in the middle of their work. So if you're an insomniac, I'm sorry. Or if you tend to constantly get up through the night, yeah, you're probably not going to end up with a brownie. The only thing they ask is owners must leave a bowl of milk or cream or some other small offering. Clothes is a no. From what I remember, one of my fairy tales, that's an insult to them. There are a few like pukas, which are a similar household spirit that also do clean. Pukas, giving them clothes is, think about the house elves from Harry Potter. Clothes is giving them clothes is a sign of release. They're no longer indebted. They're able to go about their own merry way. I remember reading a story about that where basically pukas, the one grand puka had a bunch of smaller pukas, and he was helping this farmer's grain production, and they went on for, and the farmer was so grateful, gave the puka a whole new set of clothes. The puka's like, I'm a fine gentleman now, even though they were like third hand type deal, so they're kind of scared. It's like, I'm a fine gentleman, I don't need to work here anymore, okay, bye. The farmer never saw him again, and all the smaller pukas kind of disappeared since they no longer had a grand puka to kind of keep them on task and whatnot. So pukas, giving them clothes is basically, okay, thank you for your service, bye-bye. Brownies, if I remember correctly, clothing is an insult. Cream and milk, however, sugar, hell yeah. They'll take it, kind of a little thank you for doing all this, we appreciate it. They'll take that. Left on the hearth type deal. So in modern day times, what I've discovered is a good hearth, especially if you don't have a fireplace. I mean, if you think about it, hearth in ancient times was a place where the family gathered around, where you made food and whatnot. So modern day hearth is stove. So that's where I keep my offerings to Hecate, or not Hecate, Hestia. Wow, such mage. Sorry. So if you want a brownie, leave on a little offering of cream and sugar on your stove at night, and don't get up in the middle of the night. As much as possible. However, like with any fey creature, be careful because they are extremely easy to insult. And do your research, like a lot of research, because they are very easily offended, and they will leave forever. You mess up once, you will never have brownie again, ever. Not even a different one. They will never come back. If they feel insulted or taken advantage of. Now, granted, they're meh. I don't know. I'm not going to get into the whether or not they're going to actually be physically and you're going to wake up and find all your dishes done or whatever. I don't know. I'm not quite on that. I haven't seen that. I've heard tales, but I've heard stories. I'm also not one to mess with the good people as much as possible. Even though I keep getting urge pushes too. Anyway. If they feel taken advantage of, like, that's another thing, a couple of stories I've read, is basically the owners are like, oh, we got a brownie doing all this stuff, we don't have to do it anymore. No. They will leave, and in that case, they will probably leave your house in a complete disaster. That will take you forever to clean up. You may never actually get it cleaned up. If they really get ticked off, they will turn malicious. They already are mischievous, known to play pranks or punishments, like pinching toes of lazy servants who don't do their jobs, is the way they put it. Lazy servants, basically. Yeah, so if you piss them off, they could turn malicious, known as boggarts. Sometimes said to turn malicious, like boggart. They originated as domestic tutelary spirits, very similar to Lares of ancient Roman traditions. So Lares were the little household spirits that didn't have a specific name. They were just kind of a house of spirits. Every house had them. They kind of gave luck, helped out, all that. Often, in older stories, they're usually human-sized or larger. In more recent times, they can be seen as small and wizened, like in this one, sits in the cupboard. Often capable of turning invisible, and they sometimes appear in the shapes of animals, always either naked or dressed in rags. If a person attempts to present a brownie with clothing, or if a person attempts to baptize him, he will leave forever. Okay, so I did get that right. Some other names about them: Hobbs, Silkies, Urisig, I don't know how to pronounce that, it's in Scottish. Welsh Blabak monks, Finaldri. Yeah, so they avoid being seen, rarely said to be more than one brownie living in the same house. Usually brownies associated with the house is said to live in a specific place, such as a particular nearby cave, stream, rock, or pond. Some individual brownies are occasionally given names. Tommy Boy called Bob. Yeah. So, in 1703, John Brown wrote his description of Shetland that not above 40 or 50 years ago, every family had a brownie or evil spirit, so called, which served them, to which they gave a sacrifice for his services. When they churned their milk, they took a part thereof and sprinkled every corner of the house with it for a brownie's use. Likewise, when they brewed, they had a stone which they called brownie's stain, where there was a little hole to which they poured some wort for a sacrifice to brownie. They also had some stacks of corn, which they called brownie stacks, which, though they were not bound to straw or ropes, or in any way fenced as the other stacks used to be, yet the great storm of wind was not able to blow away a straw off of them. Brownies are virtually always male, but female brownies have occasionally been described as well. So yeah. So, let's see. So how would we put this into the Three of Wands? That's the big question. Well, Brownie's a house spirit. He's established, but volatile and mischievous, so even though established, well settled and all that, it's still a 3, able to move, able to grow beyond. I think this one is talking a lot more about the established Saturn part of the Three of Wands than anything else. I think in this deck, it's definitely more make sure. I think if this was to come up in a reading and I was to read it, it would probably be something of make sure everything's in order. Make sure your house is in order. Make sure you got all your checklist done, your to-do list all checked off. Make sure you're getting all that. This is not so much a moving on, but this emphasizes the need to make sure your established power, and to that keyword, is all in order, set up right. This one I wouldn't so much read as moving on. The only way to move... This one I would read as the only way to move on is to make sure everything you've already done, all your ducks are in a row. All your squirrels are not at the rave, they're all lined up. That's a meme reference. But basically, if this one was to come up, I would read it as you need to make sure that before you do anything else, you get all your stuff already taken care of. That's the only way you're going to be able to move on, is if everything else is ready to go. You come up pretty positive more often than not. As just make sure everything's good. Or if it was in a past, like you've already got everything good, it's time to keep going. Or if it was in a future type pretense, to be like, make sure you get this all done. Yeah. Anyway, so that's how I'd come up with this one. Final piece, traditional meaning. And we're gonna use Gilded Tarot. It's pretty much everything I've been talking about. Ready and watching to go. He's strong and established. Everything is behind him. He is the future. He's ready to move forward. This, as I was reading in another one, the river. Think about it. River, time. The river is always there, always the same, but it's never the same. It's always moving, always flowing. You will never have the same water in a river twice. Ever. It will always be something different. It's always moving, always flowing. But rivers don't take a lot to change. Like where I live, the San Pedro River used to be, it's still got a huge riverbed, but it used to always be full of water until earthquakes shifted it, so it's mostly underground now. It's mostly an underground river now, even though there's still a bed and trees still grow along it, and when monsoons come or snow melts or whatever, it floods. But the point is, rivers are always there, always established, but they're always moving, constantly changing. So your most traditional meaning is you've done and accomplished. Now it's time to move forward. You're ready to move forward. You're ready, willing, stand your power, you're comfortable, you're ready to go, ready for that ship to come in, pick you up, and go on. You're ready for your ship to come in. It's like, another way I've heard it is, he's a merchant, he's well established, he's already set up to sell stuff, he's just waiting for that ship with all his merchandise to come in, so he can grow his business even more. Or even, I think the more common, now that I'm doing more research into it, I think would be, he's got his land. He's ready to move on to find new routes of trade, new suppliers, what have you. Inverted? Pretty obvious. You're stuck. You're stuck. Like, you haven't got anything established. You're just like, yeah, I know I need to get all this in order, but I want to go. And it's like, no, you can't go. You need to actually get stuff in order. It's like, this is just, you're constantly trying to move, but you're not getting anywhere. You're not going anywhere. You need this guy's help, pretty much. Sitael. You need his help to overcome those accomplishments. The only way you're going to do that is by making sure your ground is solid. You're established. So this inverted would be, it's time to get, okay, you can't move forward. You've got a shit ton of work to do right where you are. So anyway. Okay, so that's usually the end of it, but I wanted to, just because it kind of comes up. Perfect example when we're sitting here talking about different ways to read the cards, different different decks having slightly different meanings, like Jupiter in Aries or the Sun in Aries. While I was looking through my decks, trying to figure out which cards I was going to use, I happened to look at one at my Hush Tarot, and I was like, what? Like, what? And I was like, perfect example. Because the Hush Tarot is one of my newer decks. I've only had it for about a month or so. A couple of months. I haven't read very often with it. I'm bad about actually getting out and reading. So I'm like, perfect showcase of how I would take all this that I've learned, all this stuff I already knew, and figure out how to read a different deck. So, we know the three: creativity, establishment, steadiness, the connection of mind, soul, and body. The Kabbalistic angel, hope, seraphim, so a strong higher power, the highest, right below God, I guess. Or whatever the hell you want to call it. I'm just using the Christian hierarchy for this, because that's or Judaic, or whatever the hell. Abrahamic, just because that's what this comes from. We have the Kabbalah is the Na, understanding, intuition, one half of intuition. Understanding is one half of intuition combined with wisdom. Right below the crown, still in the realm of fire. We have the astrology, Aries, cardinal fire, the second deacon. Second deacon is the sun, Leo, in Aries. It's the sun in Aries. Or if we're thinking about it, we also need to take into consideration that another aspect of it is the third deacon of Jupiter in Aries. So we have those two. So, but we're still in the section of cardinal fire. It's creation. It's ready to go. We have possibilities, whether it could be the sun, which is ego, will, determination, fixed aspect, or whether it's Jupiter, which is expansion, creativity, moving on, or if it's a bit of a combination of both. I forgot to mention that. That's another thing you gotta think of, as to whether it's a bit of both. Celestial, or the constellation, Perseus. So we have the story of Medusa and Perseus in the back of our Medusa and Perseus those two stories in the back of our mind while we're also thinking about this. Then we're thinking about the brownies, the Saturn aspect. I mean, maybe not necessarily that, because that's kind of specific to a card, but that leads us into thinking and remembering Saturn, establishment, Lord of established strength, Lord of established strength. We take all those into consideration, and then we look at this card. Take that, oh, and the traditional meanings of ready and willing, stuck, established, ready to move, and stuck. Ungrounded, unestablished, just all over the place, not able to actually get anywhere. Take all of those into account, and we look at this new card. So, first off, Saturn, establishment, strength. We have right here, all three of these ones are established. They are all rooted, grounded. We can't see where their ends are, but they're all standing up straight, and they're steady. They're also bound with strips of cloth, rags type deal, which are not just binding them. They're not really binding them. They're kind of just wrapped around them. So these three wands, spears, are not needing this cloth to actually hold them up. This cloth is just holding on to them. It's just kind of decorative, because you can see kind of that it's kind of loose and hanging, and then of course it's free flowing. It's around these ravens or crows. These are crows. These are crows. You can tell by the beak. It's kind of, they're playing with it. So this is loose. So these wands are not dependent on this cloth. They're already well established. So there we have our Saturn, our establishment, our three, our strength. We've even got a bit of a triangle shape here going here. So that leads into our strong, steady groundedness. But then again, of course, and then we have our Aries, our Mars aspect. So Mars is the god of battles. So, and if you think about it, crows are also known as battlefield birds. Crows and ravens, corvids in general, are battlefield birds because they're scavengers. So we have that coming on here. So we've got that death aspect, and then of course our wands are spears here in this tarot. So this is very strongly, I'm sensing very strongly a battlefield aspect. This is the battlefield aspect. This one is strongly an Aries card. We've got a little bit of Saturn here, which makes sense because Saturn is going to be our establishment, our ruler, our government. Saturn is also the government. So government sends soldiers into battle. So here we have our battle that is grounded on establishment and on Saturn. Aries or Mars grounded on Saturn. So this is very strong battlefield aspect, war aspect. We've even got, you could even just take these little scraps of cloth, like even right at the beginning, I was thinking bindings, like when you see in old movies or whatever, when they take when their bandages are literally just strips of cloth, and even, I think in some cases still are. So this is all very strongly a battlefield feeling. Now, having said that, we've got kind of a feel for this card. So we've got this feel. We know this is battle. This is probably a long-standing war. It's well established. It's there's even woundedness just from having fought for so long. Our spears, our weapons of war, are what are the strongest here in this entire card. They're the strongest and steadiest. Because of all the wounds they create, we have to bandage those wounds up. And there's plenty of death, heralds, and omens, harbingers of death, omens of doom, is what corvids tend to be. So we've got all that right here. This is very strong battle aspect, which, if you've ever seen the Hush Tarot, it's kind of a gothic deck. Like, well, not even gothic, it's morbid gothic. more morbid than anything else, because it's not quite as dark as a Gothic deck. It's morbid. So this tells us battlefield. So now we have a sense of the card. How does that fit in with our meanings? What our cards usually mean? What this card usually has when we have... How do we compare this to this? How do we compare this to this? Well, good question. If I had to take a guess, I would say we are strongly established, and this battle is strongly established. So we have that. But they're all still fighting, and it can change. The tide of war can change at any moment. It's like you've been battling for so... If this was to come up in a reading, I'd assume that this person, this querent who got this, had been... Their establishment wasn't their home, and it wouldn't be their place of power. It would be a fight they were in. They'd have been in a fight for so long, and back and forth and wounded, and they're constantly just griping. One side's got the upper hand, now the other side has the upper hand, constantly back and forth, but it's been going on so long that it's the norm. So that would be kind of your present. So this is the norm. Past, this is what you were dealing with for the longest time. Now, depending on what cards you got ahead as to whether or not you won or they won or whatever. If it is in future position, I have to say that you're still, if this game was in future position, it'd be like, there's going to be a new battle in this long-standing war you've been in. If it was any of the present position, like if we're thinking Celtic Cross, because that's what I tend to use, if it was any in the present position, so this is where you're at as a whole, this is where your mind's at, this is where your kind of where your emotions, intuition, all that is at. It's like, this is a long-standing war, but there's still potential for change. It's a war, which means there's fighting, which means there's battles, which means something can change, something can move on and change from this. Somebody can win, somebody can lose. This isn't going to go on forever. It never does. This is a 3. It's not the end-all, be-all. It's a completion, but it is not the end. There's always movement from this. There's always a way forward, a way out. Whether the card, now I'd have to go with cards surrounding it as to whether it's like, okay, you're about to win, or you need to give up. You're not going to win this. And that would depend on other cards, but this would definitely be, in a reading, I'd say this is a battle card. This is long-established battle. You're still fighting. It's not as a happy a card as this. So, that was a little explanation on how I read tarot, especially cards I haven't read before, and how they can change from deck to deck, how they can be different, like how this one I'd be like, very much your home, like I said, your establishment, whatever you're established in, would be comfortable with, focus on that. Not so much on moving forward, but you need to focus on this so you can move forward. This is, you're at war with something, you're fighting. Whether it be win or lose, you maybe need to keep fighting to get past this. This is, you've been there, done that, time to go forward. Same with this one, your ship's coming in. This one, you probably need some help. But yeah, so that's all the differences. And wow, this is in fact going to be basically a 2-hour podcast. We're at an hour and 44. Damn. I still blame the beginning of this. I think I spent like 15 minutes explaining the 3. Anyway, Okay, so that's all I got for you today, I suppose. Excuse me. I hope you got something out of this if you managed to actually sit through all one. Excuse me. 1 hour and 45 minutes. Oh, it's been more like 2 for me, but that's because I kept pausing it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you learned some stuff. Maybe added some onto your knowledge base, or got a new perspective looking at it, even if you're well established and doing this forever, or even if you knew all this stuff. And it's like, hopefully packing it all into one place just kind of gave it a bit more edge to it. And that's kind of the entire reason I do this. It's just to add on to knowledge, just to put it all down into one place and go. So you're not, okay, this book, I'm reading all these books and just putting them all together, basically, for myself as well as all y'all. So you're not having it, so everything you get from, so you're not having to go, okay, I'm reading all this book, and then I'm reading all this book, and then, oh yeah, wait, which parts of this can I put together? I haven't actually read these books yet. I've just been like, and I really need to read this one, especially the beginning of this, because it actually talks a lot more about the Tree of Life, so it'll enhance my knowledge exponentially. But I'm able to just go, okay, I'm taking this little part out of here, and this little part out of here, and put it together. That's what I'm doing here. So, yep. Yeah, sorry about how absolutely horrendously long this is. Hopefully the next ones will be shorter. Next week is our Herbstone, Astrology, and Rune. Don't know what they'll be yet. My work week has been taking up all my mental processes, as well as the political climate. I am so stressed, it's not funny. I'll spend today sleeping. So anyway, so I don't know what those will be yet, but you'll see you next week. Hell, I might go ahead and put it out on my Facebook. And then the week after that, the 25th. Yes. So the 18th will be our astrology and magical stuff, and then the 25th we'll be exploring the High Priestess. So that'll be fun. That's it. I think that's it. Alright. Thank you all so much for sticking with me throughout all this amount of so much stuff. Birds, the fan, the dog. I'm sure you just heard him drinking his water. All that, and my camera. If you want to find me, you can find me on Facebook at Bags and Omens, and as an ampersand. Bags and Omens on Facebook. You can like, comment, and subscribe on this YouTube. Follow me on Facebook. I have a Patreon where I basically do tarot readings for money, pretty much. It's patreon.com/bagsandOmens, all one word. If you got more in-depth or just one-time readings, you can find me. You can either message me on Facebook or my Gmail is bagsandOmens, all one word, and is a full word, not an ampersand. Wish it was. At gmail.com. So bagsandOmens@gmail.com. Yeah, hit me up. I always kind of want to know what y'all think, how you think this is going, if you got any likes, dislikes, want me to quit rambling on for so long. Think I should add something to these, advice, what have you. Hit me up. I'm always, because I'm kind of just doing this with not much more than, oh, you're doing great. So it's like, okay, what am I doing great on, and what could I improve on? So I was looking for comments. So yeah, find me at Bags and Omens. You can also find me reading At Strega here in Sierra Vista on Sundays, 11 to 5. If you want an in-person reading, you can also find me on Intuitive Tarot Read. I do the daily card draws Monday through Friday. Hell, check out Mashad, even though he's got a lot of business already. I love you, Mashad. And you can check out his podcast, the Psychic Shack. He does some pretty fun stuff. And if you don't see me at Strega on Sundays, you can always check out Joey, the main tarot reader there. She works Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, because those are the days Strega's open. As tarot reader there, she's really good. Check her out on Facebook, Divination by Joey. Yeah. Alright, that's all my shoutouts, that's all my stuff, that's all my housekeeping, whatever. Alright. I probably ought to eat breakfast, and then I might be too awake, but I really need to catch up on my sleep debt. Alright, anyway, have a great day. I'll see you all next week. Yeah, bye-bye. Bobby and Garth say bye too.